That's some intense color. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It is another beautiful day to be in the kitchen. Now, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to pickle eggs once again, but this time we will be using some different flavors of vinegar. Now, in my previous video, I showed you detailed on different flavored pickled eggs, such as dill, jalapeno, onion. We're going to be doing that, but today we're going to be pickling these eggs using different types of vinegar. So don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss it out anytime I upload a new video and including a new recipe. Now, let's get to pickling some eggs. Now, here in front of me, I have 2 flats of eggs. Now for this recipe, I prefer to use tiny eggs, and simply because I can fit more eggs into each jar. With the larger eggs, you can fit about 6 per quart size jar, but for these tiny eggs, you can fit a lot more. Now, another reason is I'm not a massive fan of eating a whole egg. So these little tiny eggs are perfect for snacking for somebody like me that is not a massive fan of eating a gigantic egg. Now, these are your really beginning of spring eggs, because especially your new hens, they will start laying eggs, and when they do, they will always be little eggs. But if you want to use the regular size eggs, by all means, use the regular size eggs. In my previous video, my pickled egg video that I shared earlier last year, I did use regular size eggs, which you can refer back to that video if you want to see how I pickled those eggs. And just for reference, I'm going to show you the difference between the larger eggs and these little teeny eggs. Now, if I can make a little room here, I'm going to show you just for a contrast. And I'm going to be very careful because I have a bad habit to drop and break eggs. But if you look at this egg versus this egg, you can see the difference. These are so cute and so tiny, and this is just a normal large egg. And these are the little teeny eggs. So by the way, all of these eggs I get from local farms. And as you can see, they come in all of these beautiful, gorgeous little colors. One of my hens laid a chocolate speckled egg, such as this. This, of course, is an Americana hen, the blue, some people green, but they are blue eggs. And this, I'm pretty sure, is probably a Rhode Island red. And I'm gonna say this is probably a Buff Orpington hen, because they lay these slightly ivory colored eggs. But really, the type of hen depends on the type of eggs, but most eggs are within a general range of these color. Of course, Leghorn chickens will lay white eggs because they are white hens. But this is just a little bit of and by the way, look at the size of this egg. Now, this is going to be an extra large egg, what my mother would call a jumbo egg, versus this little egg. But you can see how many more of these you can fit in a jar versus you can only get, so many of these. So to save yourself some jar space, I'm going to use the tiny eggs today to save myself some jar space, and I don't need as many jars, so I'm going to put these aside. Now, as I say, I get my eggs from local farms. Now, these were a special request from me to my friend. She has a homestead. She has goats, she has chickens, she has milk cows, she has turkeys, she has all of those things. And I requested and asked her, could you save me the tiny eggs? And being the brave woman that she is, she didn't even ask, Sarah, what are you doing with all these little teeny eggs? But this is 60 little teeny eggs, and they're washed. And I did check them to make sure that there were no cracks or anything. You really want to make sure that you don't get a cracked egg for this recipe. Now I'm going to steam cook my eggs. And I'm going to do that in my Instant Pot, which I did show in my first video. I used my Instant Pot, and I'm going to do the same thing simply because I can put all of these eggs into my Instant Pot and cook them all at once. Now, I'm going to be very careful doing this because I have a very bad habit of dropping eggs. And that is only because much use after over the years, my fingertips have become somewhat smooth. So eggs are a little bit slippery to me. But I'm going to go ahead and load all of these in. And I can fit all 60 of these eggs in my Instant Pot. And I'm going to steam them. Now I'm going to add 1 cup of water inside of my Instant Pot. And I'm going to steam my eggs for 5 minutes. No more than 5 minutes. And all of these eggs will be cooked in 5 minutes. And I do have the rack insert in the bottom too. So they're not just sitting on the base of my pot. Okay, the last egg goes in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get the water in and then put these into my Instant Pot insert and go ahead and steam my eggs. This makes it very easy, and also it helps them to shell way easier than if you boil them. But if you prefer to boil your eggs, then by all means, boil your eggs in a pot of salted water. Now, I'm going to discuss the inclusions I'm going to add in my pickled eggs. You don't need to add any flavorings per se, but I like to sneak them in there. If I'm going to be doing it, I like to sneak some in there anyway. So, of course, you all know I like spicy. So I'm going to be adding some sliced jalapenos. You can use as much or as little. I'll be adding in some bay leaf, some black peppercorns, and some dill seed and dill weed. Now, I'm using these two because I don't have fresh dill. I could have went and got fresh dill very easily, but I want to kind of show how you can use the dried of these things and it still works perfectly fine. Because some of you are not, you might not feel like running out and going on the hunt for fresh dill. And I cannot blame you. So if you have dried dill, that works just fine. So because of that, I will be using dried dill. And of course, dried dill seed works. And this is also something you would keep on the shelves of your pantry. So I'm going to put on some gloves and slice my jalapenos because I don't really want to be walking around rubbing my eyes and crying for the rest of the day. So let me get my jalapenos sliced up and ready to go in with my pickled eggs. So now while my eggs the pressure is building in my Instant Pot to steam my eggs, I'm going to go ahead and mix up my pickling liquid. Now, I shared the recipe for my pickling liquid for my pickled eggs in my previous video that I will leave a link to. And I'm using that same recipe. I'll leave the exact recipe. Now, for my special vinegars that I'm going to be adding, I'm going to use these in small amounts. So this is Xinjiang vinegar. It's a black vinegar. It's very potent. So really this is measured for my pickled egg recipe by the teaspoon. You can also use balsamic vinegar, which I will be using. But these, again, these are stronger vinegars. This vinegar is a 5% regular distilled vinegar that we get in the grocery store. Balsamic is 6% acidity. This one is 5.5%. So these are more acidic, so you use less of them. So we'll add these into each jar by the tablespoon. So that's really not a measurement, an exact particular amount for those. You don't want to pickle eggs in all balsamic vinegar. That'll just be too strong. So I need 1 more cup of my vinegar. This all may sound complicated, but it isn't. Just a matter of numbers. Don't by any means reduce the vinegar though. You don't want to do that. It's just not safe. Let's leave it at that. It is not safe. Eggs are low acid and you don't want to tamper with the vinegar in any way. You can reduce the amount of water and your eggs will be more vinegary, but don't increase the water, and by no means do not decrease the vinegar. So it's 2. And you can taste your pickling liquid too and see if you want to add, a little bit more vinegar, a little less vinegar, however you want. I'm actually going to start off with 3.5 cups of water because I kind of want these to be a little bit more pickly. So I'm going to reduce my water just a bit, but again, don't increase the water. So I was supposed to add 4 cups. I'm going to add 3.5 cups and then kind of sample my pickling liquid and see what I think of it. Now, of course, into this, I always add sugar into my pickling brine for my eggs. Why? It's because it keeps the eggs from just being so sour and so tardy that they're unpleasant to eat. And I have eaten pickled eggs without sugar, and they were very unpleasant. For me, they were just so strong. But the amount of sugar you use is entirely up to you, and you can leave it out. This has nothing to do with the canning. So here I have a cup of sugar. I'm going to add in 3/4 of a cup and see how I like that. Again, you can leave it out if you want to. I also have some pickling salt or canning salt. This I will measure, and I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons. You can use less, you can use more. And I'll hold off just a little bit. Again, the salt has nothing to do with the preservation. Nothing at all. You don't want to add salt. You just eggs won't have much flavor. But it has nothing to do with the safety of what you're canning. Not the salt. The vinegar does, mind you, but not the salt or the sugar. So I'm going to stir this together, and I'm going to put it on the stove. And you want this to be hot. When you pour your brine over your eggs in your jar, you do want it to be hot. Speaking of jars, I have my jars sterilizing in my canner behind me. They're staying nice and hot. So you sterilize them, bring the water up to the boil for 10 minutes, and then let them boil for that 10 minutes. And then I just turn the stove down and let them stay hot. So I'm going to go over to the stove and heat up my brine. Okay, all of my eggs are cooked, and I'm just plunging them into cold water. This just helps to stop the cooking process. And then I am going to meticulously peel all of the eggs. Now comes the fun part of shelling all these eggs. It's not that difficult because when you steam eggs in an Instant Pot, they peel like a dream. As a matter of fact, the shells just slip right off. Now, as I said earlier, I'm being very careful because you do not want to nick an egg. Or that's a wasted egg for pickling because you can't use it. So you must have perfect whole eggs with no cuts or nicks. I think that's probably the reason why eggs are not advised for canning or pickling, because some people probably have tried to pickle. As a matter of fact, I know a person who contacted me that they did pickle. They tried my recipe. They pickled some eggs. They were using broken eggs, cut eggs. They pickled them anyway. And they, the jars, literally, like, they came unsealed and they were bubbling and spewing, and they had to throw their eggs out. And it was because they tried to add an egg into a jar of perfectly good eggs that was broken or cut, or, and you can't, halving it, you can't do that. You will introduce botulism into the jar. And that's not something you want to work with. So I'm being very careful so I don't cut my eggs. And as you see, this is a egg with no cuts or bruises. So take your time and do this. Be very careful because, obviously we want to use all of these eggs. Come on out of that shell. Slip out. There we go. Now this is what I mean. This egg, the top is cut. So I'm just going to set this egg aside for something else. I'm not going to pickle it. So I've already lost one of my eggs. Oh, great. But just be careful. Now I've got all of the eggs peeled, and you can see here how many eggs that I won't be able to use because not for pickling, because they have cracked or, you know, little imperfections and blemishes. So just set those aside. And we eat a lot of salads and whatnot anyway. So we love a Cobb salad. So I have boiled eggs ready for the week. So now I'm ready to go ahead and start adding my eggs into my jars, and then I can pour over my pickling brine. Okay, I've got my hot sterilized jars there. Ooh, and now I'm just going to start adding in eggs. So I've just got my eggs over here. And I'm just going to start adding eggs into the jar, as well as adding in any inclusions. So I'm going to add jalapeños into these 3. You can add as many or as little as you like. Still wearing gloves. And I'm going to add in some peppercorns into these as well. So some in there, some in there, some in there. Just remember, spices start to get more and more intense whenever you're pickling or preserving something. So you don't need quite as much of the spice. And just start dropping eggs in a jar. 12. So this jar held 12 tiny eggs. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now I am going to add in a few flavorings for one of these jars, and I do want to add a little bit of dill. So I'm just going to use just a little bit of dill weed, it's called. And I'll top off the jar with a few more jalapeños right on top. Maybe one more. Now I am ready to pour over my pickling brine. I'm just going to pour it right over my eggs. It's hot. Hot pickling brine, hot jars, hot water. That's how you prevent shocking your jars and breaking your jars. Just ladle it in. This looks like very innocent water, but it is. Oh, it is not. This is very potent water. Okay, and just remember your headspace. You want to leave about an inch headspace in each jar. Okay, and for the next one, fill all your jars, leaving 1 inch headspace. Now with this jar, I'm going to pour some of my black vinegar in. So I don't want to fill that one up entirely with this pickling liquid, because I'm going to top it off with my black vinegar. So just leave some room. Okay. Same for this one, leave some room. There we are. Okay. And let's set this aside. And I'm going to top these jars off with my different vinegars, my balsamic and my black vinegar. So just give it a little shake and just pour it in. Now, of course, this is going to turn your pickles dark. Ooh, that's intense. It smells good though. Actually, I think I'll use some in one of the dills. Yeah, let's use some in one of the dills. That's some intense color. And let's try some in this one. Actually, let's try some balsamic. That's the fun of canning or pickling. can just imagine that's going to be a puckery egg. Now, as I say, I'm going to finish topping this one off with water. And I'm going to top this one off as well, since I decided to leave it plain. But you don't want to can with these vinegars entirely. Pickle with them because they are very strong. So I'm just going to top these 2 jars off with plain pickling liquid. There we are. And I have some pickling liquid left over. Okay, so before I add my rings to my jars, I'm just going to wipe them off just to make sure they're nice and clean. There's nothing sticking to them. And then just add the lids. Fingertip tight. Whoops. Thank you, Jesus. Carrying on my mom's tradition. She said, always give thanks. Okay, and the wide mouth, which is probably the jar we'll name Sarah, because she got a wide, big mouth. Okay, so, oh, look at the black ones. This is the balsamic, and this is the one with the black vinegar, which gives you like a nice, and this will give you a nice brown egg. Now, I am water bath canning these eggs, but at this point, if you don't want to water bath can yours, all you need to do is just let them cool and then put your eggs into the refrigerator. Now, the FDA does not recommend that you you water bath canned eggs. So if you choose to do so, you choose to do so of your own free will. It is not recommended that you do so. As I previously stated, people have had problems with botulism with pickled eggs, even though there's vinegar in them. But I feel safe using perfect eggs with no nicks, cuts, scratches, and we haven't had a problem with it. But again, it is not recommended that you water bath canned eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and get the eggs into my water bath canner. Now, before you add your lid, you want to make sure that your jars are submerged in water, which mine is. The lids are covered with water, and I'm just going to put the top on my pot and bring this up to the boil, and we're going to process these eggs for 15 minutes with the pot at a full boil. Bring your pot to a rolling boil and let those eggs process for 15 minutes if you choose to water bath can them. Okay, all of the eggs are water bath canned, and I think this jar is my favorite with the balsamic vinegar. Now, of course, you can add more black vinegar, but the black vinegar is a little bit more intense than the balsamic, so that's why I didn't add but so much of it. But you can add more, of course, if you want more. Just gets a little stronger. And this is the dill with the jalapeños, and this one is plain pickled with jalapeños and peppercorns. Oh wow, these will, now of course there are 2 ways that you can keep these. Now, as I said, the FDA does not recommend that you, or the Home Canning Association, or all of those different groups, they do not recommend that you water bath process eggs for long-term storage. So that is entirely up to you. If you choose to, it's not recommended. The reason why, as I said earlier, it's not recommended is because some people are trying to process and store on the shelf eggs that they pickled that were cut or cracked or broken or whatever. It doesn't matter how much vinegar you add, those eggs will go bad. I know that for a fact, so don't do that. But I took great care to use only perfect whole eggs with no cuts or nicks or anything. So I feel safe doing this. But again, you make that choice for yourself. Now, of course, you don't have to. And I have eggs that I don't water bath can, and I just keep them in the refrigerator. So of course, keep them in the refrigerator is my suggestion to you, and they will last in the fridge for I don't know, months, maybe 3 months. I don't know. They have a lot of vinegar in them. The only problem, the reason why I say I don't know, is because the longer an egg sits in this vinegar brine, it gets more and more tougher and chewier and more leathery. So the longer it stays in your refrigerator, soaking away in this vinegar brine, just know for surety the egg is going to get more and more tougher and a little bit more chewy. That's why I say I don't know. But if you don't mind them being, they're going to be a little firm. Let's put it that way. They're going to be a little firm anyway because of the vinegar. It toughens the egg. These will be a little bit even firmer because I did process them in the water bath canner. But however you choose to enjoy your eggs, you can put these in the fridge and they will be ready in about, I'd say about 2 weeks. You want to give them a little bit of time for the vinegar to kind of start to mellow out. But in about 2 weeks, these will be ready to eat. However you choose to process, can, pickle, whatever you choose to do with your eggs. I hope you will give pickled eggs a try. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share, comment, of course, and subscribe. And the good Lord willing, I will see you guys again in another video. Take care, y'all. Bye. Which one do I want first?